Welcome to The Uncommon Truth. Today, Bob and I are joined by our guest host, Graham Dick from Langley, BC, Canada. I've known Graham for over 20 years, and he's a tenacious leader focused on constant growth and progress in whatever personal or professional activity he is enjoying. Graham Dick is a serial entrepreneur with over 30 years of business leadership. As the founder and president of Genesis Restoration Limited and co-founder and master trainer of Infection Control Training Group, Inc., he has developed the reputation as an industry leader and one of the most technical decontamination specialists in the property damage restoration industry. He has extensive experience in a variety of capacities in healthcare environments, including decontamination of restoration, abatement, and containment and barrier installations during the construction and renovation projects. He's a subject matter expert on infection control, microbial decontamination, including SARS, COVID-2, norovirus, C. diff, coronavirus, and other microorganisms, along with forensic cleaning, fire and soot restoration, and mold remediation. Graham brings order to chaos in hospitals and any environment where at-risk people and patients exist. In any of his projects, he must be tenaciously focused. Graham is married to his wife Sharon and father of 3 boys. So I want to thank you for joining us on today's journey to find the uncommon truth about tenacity. So let's start with, what is tenacity? Is basically the definition of tenacity is the quality or fact of being able to grip something firmly, to embrace it. It's also the quality or fact of being very determined and having determination and persistence. These are words that definitely describe my friend Graham and any leader that is going to progress in today's dynamically changing industry, especially in our COVID-19 world. So welcome, Graham. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what we'd like to start with is really one simple question. Graham, what do you think it means to be tenacious in life and business? That can mean physically, mentally, spiritually, in all aspects. To you, what is tenacious life all about?
You know, Heath, when I consider tenacity and the characteristics that make it up and define it, it's that never say die, never quit. You get knocked down because life isn't fair. Life doesn't deal you good cards. You still have to play them. And tenacity is playing those cards with some style. It's getting back up when you don't feel like it. Tenacity, in my mind, I need to separate myself from my feelings, which can be very variable, and focus on what I know is true, and focus on the goal, whether it's my relationships, whether it's my sporting activities, my motorcycling, as we've discussed, one of my passions, or development of really any skill that I've developed over the years. Tenacity is, well, in terms of learning, reading with a highlighter and a pen, and not ripping through the content, but stopping, thinking, dwelling, asking questions, fact-checking, and oftentimes going to the authors, going to those resources, seeking them out, asking them questions, buying them lunch, and picking their brains, because what they wrote is usually only a small tidbit of the well that they're drawing from. Tenacity is, never quitting. Never quitting. there's high times, there's low times, um, but it comes to really managing your attitude. And for me, that's that's being cup half full, not cup half empty. It's looking for the silver linings, for the bright side, for the positive, because that's what keeps you going. And it's been said that oftentimes success is just being the last man standing. So how's that? That's a
Wow.
little bit to start the conversation.
I think that last statement was strong, Bob. What do you think?
That's great. Great comments, Graham. Thanks so much. I think it was Albert Einstein or somebody that said that success is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. You guys will be able to quote me on or improve the quote, but I think that speaks a bit to tenacity as well. To me, tenacity is a learned skill. So we often talk about human beings as having a certain nature. In other words, they have a bio imprint, or they have a certain biology, or they have certain genes. And then there's their part, which is the experiences that they have growing up and the lessons they learn and lessons that they're intentionally taught by their parents or by associates or as they go through life. And it seems to me, and I'd love your perspectives on this, gentlemen, that tenacity is not so much nature, but it is more nurture. That we learn tenacity, that we learn determination, that we learn persistence through life, or we don't. And it's been my experience that in my life, I've had times where I've been less tenacious or more tenacious, less determined or more determined, depending on the situation, depending on the people that I'm involved with, depending on a variety of factors. But I think a standard, if someone was to look at me and say a standard character skill or a standard virtue that Bob has, is he is determined. When he gets knocked down, which is often, Graham, which is significantly a large percentage of my life, I do somehow get up, crawl up. Sometimes I bounce up, but that's to me the inherent symptom that you are tenacious is when you somehow get back to your feet and wobbly take the next step forward or charge forward. So that's what I found during life, depending on the situation. It's about going forward, no matter what the barrier, no matter what the challenge that's ahead of us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with both of you. Something that's sort of come to my mind with all of this is that, there's been studies done all over history, and the one that I heard best is that a man with a clear, defined purpose and belief will persevere and will be tenacious when they're willing to pay the ultimate price, because their belief is so strong. It leads to tenacity. So it seems that in a lot of our discussions, this determination, this tenacity, this perseverance of life and working through each moment and circumstance really is tied to our beliefs and to our why, that purpose that we're doing it for. Because as you said, Graham, it's not if there's going to be tough times. It's not if there's going to be challenges. It's just when and how often. So if our why is strong enough, that belief in what we're doing and the value it's going to bring, that's going to really keep us driving forward. So putting it to some real life perspective, Graham, you work in a really dynamic industry. And right now with COVID-19, we as a race, as a people, are facing challenges that are unique to us. A lot of fears and a lot of unknowns and uncertainty are occurring in our life that regardless of a person's belief on COVID-19 and all the stuff that goes on around it, it requires tenacity to keep persevering through this to find a cure on the medical side, but also to create safe environments for people to be able to do work and to continue life. So what are your thoughts in a practical aspect, both in your business that you're seeing of people, and what do you think we can do to be tenacious to help this in real life?
That's a great question, Heath. Tenacity during COVID-19, during this pandemic, and the period that we are in right now in North America, it's certainly a unique time in history. When it comes to tenacity, I think of mental exercise, mental preparedness, and just your mental state. And as Bob reference, is that nature or nurture? And that's oftentimes been a circular discussion, and I think that there's many influencing factors that play into the level of tenacity that one has. I think it's much like art or music, that everybody has a certain amount hardwired in, but then based on discipline, mentoring, practice, coaching, who you surround yourself with influences your attitude, and that's, like I said, I think attitude is probably the single biggest factor, because you know, what your mind dwells on is where your body goes. It's you know, to give an analogy, in motorcycle racing, one of the skills that we're taught is never to look off the corner, but to look around the corner. And no matter what happens, don't focus on where you think you might go, focus on where you want to go, because your body will go where you look. And the reason why most people crash in corners is because they got scared and they look off the road, and that's where they go. If they look further around the corner, their body literally takes the right form, and the bike is capable oftentimes of much more than we thought it was. It's the same in life. I think the analogy really parallels. We are capable of far more than we ever imagined. You know, we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and if we are looking and our focus is in the right direction, and that's heavily influenced by those that we hang around with, those that we listen to, what we fill our mind with, then that will largely determine whether we're going to make it around the corner.
Yes, I totally agree. Bob, what is your thoughts on the examples that Graham has just given? They're very powerful.
Graham, I love that motorcycle analogy. That's perfect for this discussion, in the sense of looking ahead, being focused on the future. And you used the word attitude as well, talking about attitude. I love the fact you brought that into. But let's just maybe I'd like to talk a bit about attitude and a bit about that looking to the future. So looking to the future, I think means having clear, measurable goals, clear, measurable vision of where you're going as well. So looking to the future. So it's a lot easier to get up after you've been knocked down if you do have that power of belief in your future, that you have a vision of where you want to go, and you have measurable, clear-cut goals on a monthly, weekly, and daily basis. So it's pretty easy to have one bad day or one bad hour, but it's pretty hard to have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 bad days in a row, as long as you have these measurable, concrete goals that you're always work towards. Because therein you get, as you accomplish a goal, you get a really tremendous feeling of accomplishment. You start to build your self-confidence. You start to realize the reason, the value of getting up when you get knocked down. So you have a bad day, you don't feel like getting up, but you get up nonetheless because you have a powerful vision of where you need to go. So you get up, you start to accomplish a goal here, an objective there. You start to feel better about yourself, and your attitude changes through that process. Get knocked down, get knocked down, get knocked down, get knocked down, get knocked down. Maybe your attitude's different, but you get back up and you accomplish something. The pain goes away, the emotional anguish goes away, the bad feelings seem to go away, for me at least, right? So that's my contribution for that piece.
You know, I'm thinking about a quote by Les Brown right now that comes into my mind, where he says, you know, we need to fail forward and we need to fall on our back. So when we fall, we can get right back up. It's not if you fall. The winner is the one who gets up and keeps getting up until the others don't get up. So that tenacity to say, it's up to me if it's going to be. So accountable is what I see tenacity about. It's really above the line thinking. It's what you've really said. It's how do we control our focus, be focused on where we want to go, surround ourselves with those people, those running mates, the people that can really put good stuff in, so it keeps us in focus and keeps our attitudes above the line in an attitude of gratitude, that we're able to really fail forward and have that fantastic adventure in learning. And you know, Graham, it makes me smile when I think about it, because I don't know anybody that can wheelie like you. I don't know anybody who has ever crashed like you either. and that is a primary example, as we're out dirt biking together and you just wheeling down the dirt path and then whoops. But you're so fast, you bounce right back up and continue on, where someone like myself is not as gifted at wheeling, because I do at times allow fear, or maybe it's common sense, but we'll call it fear, to control my behavior. So just a little bit of humor in the moment. I think this really, I think, is a great segue to our second question, guys. And that's really, how do we execute tenacity? Is it simply shown only in an attitude to improvise, adapt, and overcome during times of challenge or hardship? So we're all in COVID-19, this pandemic, we're all facing different challenges. But is it really hard, what we're going through? Does it really require tenacity? These are some of the questions that I have going through my mind. But what I know is that no matter where I am, where you guys are, where any of us all are as individuals, tenacity is an ingredient of success. And I got a neat thing, being a retired policeman. I love the Marines and some of the things that they do and apply in life. The Marines are taught to be able to overcome any obstacle, which serves them well in the chaos of combat. This concept is encapsulated in the Marines slogan, improvise, adapt, and overcome, which is a mindset. It's really a way of thinking that allows Marines to deal with any physical, mental, or spiritual hardship that they're currently going through. And each moment or circumstance affects each of us uniquely, based on our past, but mostly about our beliefs. And if you have a source that creates faith, as we talked in the past, we've talked about what the fear killers are. Well, the first fear killer is faith. Then the ability to embrace. A is then to accept what really is, and then R is actually to respond. So those are things, taking action. So how do we take action and execute tenacity? What's your thoughts, Graham?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and principles like that. You just gave a military analogy, and I think of a YouTube by a general, and one of the things that he speaks of that you need to do if you want to be successful is make your bed when you get up in the morning, because you start the day with an accomplishment, and no matter how small, it sets the tone and starts you off right. In terms of tenacity, the habits to build and create it are having a regimen, having a system for yourself that you follow, regardless of whether someone's yapping in your ear and putting external pressures on you. You create your own good habits, and I think that's a challenge for a lot of people right now. When they're quarantined, that they don't have to show up at an office or at a job site at a certain time. So then they don't bother setting their alarm, and they get into the habit. I've talked to so many people that go, I've gained 15 COVID pounds, all those COVID teenies at 11 o'clock in the morning. And their habits and how they hold themselves accountable is having the opposite effect on them. And then that creates mental laziness, and then that creates the opposite of tenacity, which I think one of you mentioned earlier, it breeds fear. And I think that's one of the things that we really want to speak against in society is fear. We want to move forward with knowledge, with safe hygiene practices. I believe that a key to getting back to business economically is to improve public hygiene. And that conversation is starting, but it should have started a month ago already, because people don't develop habits the day before they open the restaurants back up or the schools back up. They need to start developing those habits long before, so that when they do go into public, they know how to assess risk. They know how to have better hygiene practices, so that they're not placing themselves or others at unnecessary risk, and create a safer society as a result. All of this plays together into habits, and those habits are the cornerstone, I think, of tenacity. What do you think, Bob?
Great comments. Love your reference to Covey in that book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. The very first principle is the habit of being proactive. And so that's what you're talking about. I think it is, Graham. To me, it speaks that every day that we get up, and Covey says on a weekly basis, we need to do this. We have to identify the powerful areas in our life, the major areas in our life, and we need to be proactive in those areas. We should be taking action in the areas of your spouse or the person that you love in life, your children, your finances, your business, learning, spiritual growth, these major areas in life. And if we take action, vision those things, then there's something happens, something really powerful happens. You feel good, you feel confident, you start to make progress, and you really start to believe in yourself. And I think that's what builds the character of tenacity. That's what builds determination, perseverance is you actually making progress that you value. It's like a personal value, taking action. If you do the opposite, if you spend a lot of time with Netflix, if you spend a lot of time in a gaming studio, right, doing games, I mean, there's value in that too. But at the end of the day or at the end of the week, if you spend the bulk of your time in these minor things, you don't have that. You've done probably very little to build tenacity, build perseverance, move yourself forward. And I think people should really take stock of where they're at, because life is nothing but time. That's all we have. And a lot of us, looking at me in the video, I've got limited time left, Graham. Limited time. So I want to make the most of my days. I want to make the most of today. And so I want to have concrete goals in those major areas of life that are going to be very valuable to me and the others around me. So I'll just give you a quick example. I'm thinking about my 3 kids, I'm thinking about my wife, I'm thinking about my business. 3 of the maybe 7 major areas that I think about. And today I will have created things to do, things to say to my wife, because she's away from me right now. 2 of my 3 kids actually all 3 kids are away right now, right? So I'm a distant father and distant husband, but I'm going to take action in those 2 major areas. And in business, I've got things that I'm doing today that make me feel like I'm moving ahead. That at the end of the day, I will say it's been a good day in business for me because I've taken some action. And I think that's the sort of thing that is the foundation of that word, Heath. It's the foundation of tenacity. It makes me more determined, not less determined. It makes me look forward, not behind. And I don't feel like I'm in quicksand or frozen. I feel like I'm moving somewhere where I want to move.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Bob. I think my summary would be supporting of what you both said, that how do we execute on tenacity is really about being clear on our why, and we're doing what we're doing and where we're going. And ultimately looking at those that have already successfully achieved it and copying them. We've been taught in our schools that, you don't copy, it's plagiarism, etc. However, in real life, when you leave the classroom and you have a proven model, we'll call them rituals or habits, why wouldn't we duplicate those successful habits? So what I try to do in my life is I look at people that have the fruit that I want to have. And then I look at what is the roots that's driving that fruit, which is the habits and rituals. And then I literally just copy it. So we've talked about my rituals many times, but the real truth is that what we're saying is that the 2 laws of focus and proximity are really core to having a character that's tenacious and that will overcome any obstacle. That we need to create those rituals that drive the success or the outcome that we want. And I think that this segues us again right into the 3rd question, which is, if we're going to create rituals, really, we're doing that whether we like it or not. The habits we create are being created every day by choice, consciously, or unconsciously, just by lack of not doing something. You are creating a habit and a ritual. And that leads us into, how do we face life's challenges with tenacity, and how can we face these challenges using what we've already learned here with creating the rituals, controlling our mindset through focus and proximity? And how do we face the challenges of life, both in our personal and our professional business? Because everything's in transition right now. The world is uncertain. All 3 of us are entrepreneurs. We've all worked as employees in our earlier parts of our life. But that transition that we're going to have to go through, each and every one of us in this COVID-19, is really critical. Where is our focus? Is this an opportunity or not? I believe everything is working out for the good, right? And we're blessed, basically. we're blessed in every opportunity. So what is that, guys? How do we face life's challenges of life in a personal and professional business transition like we're going through and really execute on being tenacious? Go ahead there, bud. Graham.
Well, big question. How do we do that? One thing, I mean, there's several things that strike me. Diet, exercise, sleep. I mean, those are, as much as people talk about it, we're usually pretty lousy at managing that. And I got to confess, I mean, my exercise regimen has fallen apart during COVID-19. My diet's good. My sleep is, I've really focused this last year on more sleep and better sleep, because I was doing some studying and some reading, and I realized that I recognized in myself symptoms of being chronically sleep deprived. And when you recognize that sleep is the time that your body heals itself and the time that your mind can solve problems unconsciously, it's just so critical to improve that aspect of your life. Another habit is the last 5 minutes of your day, or in that last hour, having your bedtime routine, but planning your following day. Just 5 minutes spent planning your next day is going to make your following day ridiculously more productive. And it's amazing how that sets the tone for succeeding in tenacity. You talk about proximity, Heath, and proximity to people that exude the traits and characteristics that you want to emulate. And that's having conversations just like the one that we're having now, that edify and build up and encourage. And it's so important. Feed your soul, and it's not just I mean, thankfully I'm ridiculously busy with work, with 3 different businesses right now, but that includes now making personal time as well, and a lot of times you've got people during this time that are crazy busy. I was talking with one supplier this week that his company's gone from $12 million a year to over $200 million a year because of this pandemic. And talk about hanging on for a wild ride, and the tenacity required to come out the other side without blowing up and losing all the things that you've worked for is just as real a risk as if you just had moderate growth. Yeah, those are a few things. I'll pass it to you, Bob.
Thanks, bud. Well said. No, good, very excellent comment. The question, the thing that I thought about is children, and we're all fathers. And I've intentionally raised my children, understanding in my own way that character skills are really important in children as they grow up. I wanted my child to be independent and be successful in life, that they'd have to develop character. And it strikes me that when children are born, that they all have an equal amount of character. So things like courage and integrity and honesty and tenacity are all in every child when they're born. Inherent, they're waiting to be developed. And I read something maybe about 3 or 4 months ago where a parent was speaking about that they had made a mistake, that they had cared for their children, they provided food and clothing and a house, but they hadn't intentionally raised their children with values values and ethics and morals and character. They just didn't think about it. They weren't taught that that's maybe something parents should do or could do. Maybe not should do, but could do. And so I think that I remember my daughters. One of my two daughters is 5 years old, and we're on the Kettle Valley Railway in the Okanagan, and we're probably doing about 7 or 8K on bikes together. And she's got her new bike, and we're on the very, very flat, like a 3% grade, but there's one dip in the railway, and I kind of went down the dip, and then I stopped at the bottom and waited for her to come down, and she looked a little uncertain at the top of this dip, and she came down, and you could see her handlebars doing this, right? Handlebar doing this, and boom, the bike jerks off to the side, and she goes right over the handlebars, and she crashes face first and skids 3 feet on this sharp gravel railway bed, right? And so I go over to her, pick her up, and I picking the stones out of her face, and blood's gushing down. So I get my water bottle, I wash it all off, and I staunch the bleeding. And she's crying, of course, and so I let her cry. And then I said, "Okay, you done crying?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Great." I said, "We've got 4 more kilometers to go. Let's go." And I put her back on her bike, and she just went ahead, right? And for me, that was an important lesson. It's an important lesson. Is that an important lesson in tenacity or just stupidity on parents' part? I'm not sure. But we sometimes talk about that in terms of her getting knocked down and getting right back up again and finishing the ride, right? And so there's been 2 times, probably in the last 3 years, she's 22 years old this June, that I've used that example. I've used it once, and she's used it once, about overcoming something and moving on. And I thought there was a lesson there. That was an intentional lesson. It was an opportunity. I took the opportunity, and I think that's how you build character. I think that's how you help children build character. But I'm intentional about my lessons in life, my pains, my knockdowns, my wife's knockdowns. And I think every time you get knocked down, there's an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to build courage, build resilience, build these character skills.
Yeah, I think you've both really defined this well. A couple things that have hit me through this discussion, some quotes that I like, is one that Charles Swindoll quotes, that we're all faced with a series of great opportunities, brilliantly disguised as impossible situations. You know, life is really just a series of circumstances and situations. And quite often, as you so eloquently said, Graham, is that we feel overwhelmed and don't quite know how to respond. But what you said is, if you can visualize, you can see, you can focus on that outcome and our why, then we're able to seize that moment better, because chance favors a prepared mind. And if we're focused on where we want to go, we're more likely to make the turn, even if we're going in hot, as you said in your bike story. If we're looking at the point at the exit of that turn, that bike is going to bank and lean and head there. If we look at the wall or we look into the bush, it's funny how we end up right where we looked. So how we respond in our circumstances is really our choice. And it really comes back to how we've set ourselves up for success. How are we preparing? How are we choosing to respond in these moments? So I'm going to take a moment here, as I do at the end of every show, to try and do a summary of what we've learned today about finding the uncommon truth about tenacity. And this has been an amazing discussion. I've learned an immense amount. So here goes. Tenacity is the persistence to learn and grow, to never quit or stop growing and learning. We need to keep seeking to find the truth until you find what you are looking for, regardless of our circumstances. That means we got to manage our attitude, live with gratitude. We are blessed. How do we be that last man standing? We need to basically remember that winners never quit and quitters never win. It requires us to be determined, to really be clear on our focus of where we are going and why. We need to surround ourselves with people that are already there so that we can follow the breadcrumbs, because success leaves clues. They just happen to be called habits or rituals. Our life circumstances we're in right now of this pandemic, or any crisis that we face, this isn't the last one we're going to face in our life, God willing. So we need to focus on controlling our mindset, controlling proximity, the things that affect our attitude. We need to control who we allow to put thoughts and attitudes into us. That alone takes tenacity, persevering, looking forward, ensuring we are focused on where we want to go will definitely increase the odds that we will end up where we're looking. So with tenacity, common people can create uncommon outcomes. When we fall down, success is really just getting back up. There is no failure if we learn. It's a fantastic adventure in learning. So we need to ensure we give ourselves this best opportunity. And Graham, you spoke really well to a principle that Bob and I've talked a lot about, and it's the 4 pillars of health. We need to breathe. We need to meditate. We need to learn. We need to have good sources of income. Input, I was going to say, but good income is good as well. And that's created by all these habits. We need to basically breathe. We need to hydrate, drink good water, eat well, exercise, and don't forget to rest. Create and follow good rituals, those routines that are going to set the tone of our day. We start with success. Make our bed. We need to realize we're always creating habits, consciously or unconsciously. It's our choice. Do we live above the line, or are we going to live below the line in victimhood and saying, well, it just didn't work out, or, well, they did this, so I had to do that. I didn't have a choice. No. We always have a choice in how we respond. That response is choosing to live our ideal form of life. And to do that, we all need tenacity, which I believe can be summarized by the challenge to live intentionally focused on executing. Focus on what you want. Then get up and go. Seize the challenges that are wrapping our opportunities. It's an opportunity. It's a gift each day. That's why it's called the present. I really want to thank you for joining us today, Graham, and really digging in to find the uncommon truth about tenacity.
And Heath, before we go, while you were summarizing that up nicely for us, it occurred to me that there were periods of my life where I felt that I was frozen, that I couldn't move, that I didn't necessarily have the knowledge or skills to move forward. And I wanted to, the people that are listening to this, feel that they're frozen, feel that maybe they don't have this particular character skill, feel that the situation is too complex and they don't have a good way out, they don't have a good group of people around them. I'd encourage them to reach out to somebody. I'd encourage them to find a coach, to find somebody that's been through it before, to take, that's a really good small step, is to reach out to a professional, reach out to a coach, reach out to somebody and start discussing the issue. One of the truths about life is we all have these things, um, these issues as we go through life, and it's very human to be frozen in time, frozen in place. Very human to be not know which direction to go in. And this is a complex thing. We're talking about mission. We're talking about taking action. We're talking about creating rituals. This is complex stuff that, you know, we're all the three of us are, we struggle with this each and every day, right? And we've got years and years and years of experience. But you know, for younger people that find themselves in a certain spot right now, reach out to somebody. It doesn't cost anything, and there's often a huge benefit to doing that.
Oh, I can't say it more. I think sometimes I can get caught up in my head, and I think, you know, we talked about proximity a lot today. Really, what that word means is getting around good people. Sometimes we have to cut people that are pulling us down. And I would say that I have been blessed in my life. And Graham, I'd really like to hear your thought on this. I think this requires a little more chat, because proximity is power. I have had the blessing of being, well, friends with both of you gentlemen. And I am exactly where I am because of an immense amount of support and an immense amount of love and people that have really walked alongside me through my struggles in my life. You know, whether it be walking through divorce, whether it be just raising my son into the amazing man that he's become. It wasn't me that did all of that. It was having family and friends, people of character and better character than me, that were willing to reach down and pull me up. So I support you 100%. Graham, what are your thoughts on that power of proximity?
You know, I believe that we all need to go through life with one hand up and one hand down. We're holding on to someone that's helping pull us up, and we're holding on to someone that we're pulling up.
Mm-hmm.
And
Brilliant.
times when we're getting stretched, right? And and that person above us is pulling us in ways that is uncomfortable and challenging us and encouraging us and helping us change through that accountability. And there's times where we're that same person to the person below, but there's other times where we're empty and we're just a link in the chain. And but if we're connected to each other, you know, then we're going to make it. We're going to make it together.
Oh, could there be a better way to summarize it? Thank you, Bob, for that. This is what
Perfect.
tenacity is
Perfect.
about. Tenacity is really about reaching up and bringing up as we go through life and realizing that together we can. There is no obstacle, there is no challenge that cannot be overcome if we're willing to be tenacious about our focus and about who we're going to run this race with. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time today and helping us really find the uncommon truth about tenacity. God bless.
Absolute pleasure.
Excellent meeting you, Graham. What a thrill.